Hi, this is Tom Fletcher, Senior Vice President of Global Partnership Solutions for the Phoenix Suns. This is One-on-One with ADC Partners.
Hi, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners. Control what you can control. That's the mantra that Phoenix Suns Senior Vice President of Marketing Partnerships Tom Fletcher spoke to himself as his playing days in the NFL came to an end. It was his vow to never let his future be left to the capricious whims of some unknown team executive. With that, Tom began his sports business career by focusing on what he could control, building solid relationships, saying yes to opportunities, working with great teams of people, and so much more. That focus has seen him through some ups and downs throughout his career, including the current challenge of managing partnerships for a team whose owner was just suspended by the NBA. In our conversation, we touch upon that unique challenge, what the transition away from being a professional athlete was like, and lessons he picked up hanging around Coach Nick Saban and the University of Alabama football team. Enjoy. So, Tom Fletcher, let's start this conversation off by we got to go into your origin story, of course, because coming out of college, you went to the NFL. You are a official NFL alumnus. Can you went into the NFL as a long snapper? Can you talk a little bit about what that was like to be thrust into the machine that is the NFL and coming out of college? What was that like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's what an incredible experience or opportunity that was for me. You know, it was one that when I went into college, it was one where I thought my path was going to be baseball, and that's what I originally went to San Diego State for, was around the baseball side.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I ended up walking on for football, and it turned into an opportunity where I ended up getting a full ride on the football side, and that's kind of where that path led from long snapping. And I had a great coach at San Diego State that really kind of showed me the light and opened up the door, and I walked away from the baseball side and focused on football. And the opportunity opened up the door with the Raiders to go as a undrafted free agent to at least kind of get a cup of coffee for a handful of games. But it was one that was amazing during that time in 1995. It was the Raiders were relocating to Oakland from LA, but you walk into the locker room with, you know, Rocket Ismail and Tim Brown and these amazing life-size personalities. And it was just great to be kind of a blue-collar guy that was just appreciative of being there with the opportunity. And while it didn't last as long as I would have loved to have had to last, to be able to have that experience certainly kind of set my path and drive for what my career was going to be after that.
Well, I would say that your cup of coffee with the NFL was longer than my cup of coffee with the NFL. So you've absolutely got that. You walked on. Did you walk on as a long snapper?
I did. Yeah, I did. It was one that for me, I had way back in the day when I was in Pop Warner. I had a football coach that again, I was a big baseball kid, and I had a football coach that introduced me to long snapping at like 9 or 10 years old. And it was one that I always held in my back pocket. And when I got into high school, it was one that they raised a hand to volunteer of who wanted to do it. And I raised my hand. And
who's the guy who's really good at chucking stuff quickly between their legs?
Pretty much.
That's me, Coach.
Yeah, I'm like, I can do life upside down. And so, you know, for us, it was one that it was a unique path. And certainly was a separator when it comes to things on the field of, you know, maybe not being big enough to play at this position at the next level or fast enough to play at this position at the next level. This is one where, I mean, if you could throw a ball into the mailbox, which is what we call it, is if you can put that ball in the mailbox every time, you got a pretty good chance to kind of advance things through. And the great part was it paid for school. So no matter what was going to happen after school was paid for. My degree was there, you know, and that was the incredible opportunity for me. And again, I think set the kind of work ethic for me. The one thing about the NFL is my career was in somebody else's hands,
right?
The GM's hands, any of those. My biggest thing of making that transition to the business piece of it was I wanted to get into an environment that I controlled my destiny versus it being in someone else's hands. And that that was my goal and drive.
Right. And that's also, I mean, the position is such a capricious one too, right? I mean, it's like not every team has a specialized long snapper. So you're always kind of walking that tightrope between, is that general manager going to see enough value in what I'm doing to dedicate that limited number of roster spots? And so you had a little bit of time with the Raiders, a little bit of time with the Seahawks. And it was during that time with the Seahawks, I was actually reading an article about it, and you said, like, if it doesn't work out here, I'll probably become a teacher.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, right? You know,
Yeah.
you ended up going to 24-hour fitness, and you started managing that company's sponsorship portfolio. How did that transition come to pass? You know, when you talk about making, like, I'm a professional athlete to someone who's still working tangentially in sports, how did that connection point work for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one for me that when I left Seattle, I still had a window or a belief that I might end up somewhere else with
Mm-hmm.
another team.
Yeah.
And so I actually took a temp job at 24 Hour Fitness in their marketing department just to kind of keep myself occupied, and just happened to fall in love with it. It was
Mm.
not a path that I thought I would go down the road of.
You were thinking you're just going to get access to all that gym equipment.
Yeah, exactly. And it was it was actually a great temp job because I got the free membership behind it. I could still keep lifting and training
Right,
and
right.
be in the position for
You're
it.
ready
So
to
it
go.
worked out well. Yeah, it met my needs in many ways. But I kind of, again, I fell into the opportunity. I ended up hitting it off with the CEO from there, a gentleman by the name of Mark Mastro.
Yeah, Mark Mastroff.
And we kind of had a great conversation about kind of his vision. And it was at a time when 24 Hour Nautilus had just acquired Family Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
We had 100 clubs at the time. And he kind of came to me, and the group came to me and was like, look, this is the vision. This is what we're looking to do. And it kind of snowballed into an opportunity around this sports marketing thing in the late 90s that everybody started to go down the road with. And we built it from scratch. And
Yeah.
I ended up getting a full-time offer originally to run the promotions for the clubs. And that's kind of how we built it. And then we parlayed it into the sports marketing world. And we ended up bringing on Cindy Crawford and Brandy Chastain and Magic Johnson and stuff. But we ended up sponsoring and partnering with all these teams, especially in markets where we were growing into or acquiring somebody else's clubs and had to rebrand in the market.
Yeah.
So I literally learned it from scratch because there was not a sports marketing class back then in college. There was not a manual on how to do it back in the day. And we kind of built it from the ground up, and what a incredible opportunity and great fortune on my end.
What also strikes me, though, in the number of conversations that I've had with people whose beginnings in the industry really start with putting yourself in a position to say yes to something, right? I'm going to take this temp job at 24-Hour Fitness. Oh, and I all of a sudden struck up this great relationship with Mark Mastroff, the president of the company, right? This ability to make connections within the places where you're working, or saying yes to opportunities, really seem to be the difference maker for people as they begin their trajectory into some of the careers that we're talking about. Because like you said, in the 90s, it didn't really exist. I mean, sports marketing was kind of this, oh, well, okay, well, we can partner with sports and try to do some stuff. I mean, can you talk about that just a little bit? Like the willingness to sort of be present and able to take something on, and how that's benefited you.
No doubt. And it's, we'll talk about Portland here in a little bit, but when I was in Portland, our head coach was a gentleman by the name of Nate McMillan, who's the head coach in Atlanta right now. And I remember we were in the playoff run or whatever, and Nate and I got to have a pretty good relationship. And I made a comment to him about, hey, good luck, whatever it is. And he stopped me and he said, you're good. You create your good luck, and you put yourself in the best position for that good luck. And, for me, it kind of tied back to, again, that temp job is, for me, it was one of, hey, the door was open. I'm going to take every advantage of opportunity of it. But I'm also one who I'm going to pay my dues.
Yep.
I did not walk into Mark Mastrov's office and say, this is what I want to do. It was, I had to earn my keep and pay my dues and learn the opportunity. And I think that's one that I try to parlay or kind of communicate to young people today is that opportunity to don't be afraid to get out there and grind.
Yeah.
And kind of learn it, and not look for the promotion 6 months into the job or 12 months into the job is you create that next promotion by doing it before you ever get it. And that's the part for me that I've always tried to take advantage of, kind of those opportunities and creating that good luck for yourself.
Do you feel like your time in the NFL and being focused on being an athlete prepared you well for the more quote unquote traditional business role, or were there things that you really had to learn that were like, oh, that's didn't expect that, that's different? I mean, I'm assuming you can answer that question either way, but I'm interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think the part about the NFL piece of it was one of you trained every day, right? You're since 8-10 years old.
Yeah.
I was an athlete ever since I could remember, and you put so much time and energy into that, and I was in the best shape of my life, playing the best that I've ever played, and I was out of a job.
Yeah.
So I looked at it and turned around and said, okay, how can I put that same time, effort, and energy into my professional career, knowing that I could control my destiny by putting that same energy and maximizing that opportunity? So for me, that was the path that sports did, was time management, was that drive that I've never been motivated on title. I've never been motivated on, what that salary piece of it was, or chasing any of those. Mine was that success and that reward of that personal success that you got in playing as an athlete. And that was the one that, you can never replace that camaraderie that you have in athletics. You can never replace that high of running out of the tunnel and what that meant on a game day. But you now get that through mentoring young people and growing those around you, or closing a new business deal and the excitement of what that kind of chase, that dance looks like to be able to get there. Those are the things that athletics, for me, kind of paved the path for it, and why I love hiring athletes, former athletes, to work for us, because they have that same drive and passion and that goal to achieve for themselves, but also being good teammates.
Yeah, my dad owned a company back in Boston back in the day, and I know he used to talk about the first thing he would look at on any resume that came across his desk was whether or not they played team sports. Whether or not they played team sports, and whether or not they were the captain of team sports, because that was that initial filter, right? You have that legacy of working hard for an objective, whatever that can be, and whether it's, winning games and championships and all those kinds of things, but that translates, right? Totally. And it's absolutely informing the way that you approached your success going forward in your work. And let's talk about that trajectory a little bit, because as you just talked about, you did spend a little bit of time with the Trailblazers. You had come off of 24-Hour Fitness. You had been building this program from scratch, right? You really start to see some success associated with it, right? And, going out and you talked about Cindy Crawford and Magic Johnson, and here's this great example of how this can be. Then you go to the other side of the table. Yeah. And you start working for the Trailblazers in the early 2000s. And this was actually a fairly tough period of time for the Trailblazers, because, this is when they earned the unfortunate nickname, the Jailblazers thing, that, some of the players were getting into trouble. Can you talk about a little bit, like you come off this success and all of a sudden you find yourself in this period where the product you're selling has some real challenges associated with it. Can you talk about what that's like during that period when you're talking to brands that might be hesitant about the product that you're putting out there, and how do you creating that relationship with the team that you're representing?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, part of my transition, or why my shift happened, was I was sponsoring all these teams, and I would go to every sporting event I ever wanted to go to, between Super Bowl, World Series, Pro Bowl, any of those things. It was awesome. But I was there to watch a team play. And I missed going to a game or watching a game and actually have it matter and have it impact. And that was the draw to get on the other side of the table, was to get to a team. And when you win or lose, it impacts what you do that next day.
You feel it.
You do. And that part's exciting. And people have a passion about it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And that's going into Portland. I literally was talking to somebody about it today. I came in on the end of a playoff run. Team had just won 55 games, and change was happening. They, made a move on the GM. It was a time when we were scaling back multiple companies that had merged together. And 30 days in my employment, we laid off 88 people in one day. That was a Tuesday. The next Tuesday, one of our players got in trouble in the airport with a substance they shouldn't have had. The following Tuesday, another player got in trouble for whatever it was. And I'll tell you, I have always prided myself in business on relationships. And I think the part that became important in Portland when we navigated that challenge around the product was relationships. And it was kind of I talk about it being your authentic self and being able to talk about what we could truly do for that partner and what I can control. There's other things I can't control. And we're going to kind of put the best opportunity for that partner in place and maximize opportunity for them and trust the relationship that is there and be able to grow that. And I will tell you, through that, we were able to, maintain and keep the majority of that business on board. And when we kind of came on the backside of where that was from the product on the court, those partners grew with us. And those are the ones who probably, invested the most into where we were going because of that belief and that trust of where we were going to go. And I'll tell you, again, our head coach, we made a move. Maurice Cheeks was there previously, and we made a move and hired Nate McMillan. And the lead assistant he hired was a gentleman by the name of Monty Williams, who happens to be our head coach here in Phoenix. And again, I try to align myself around good, strong people with great conviction and those things that they stand for. And having Nate at the helm on the product side, it was the future was great from that perspective.
It's interesting when I think back to how this conversation started and how you wanted to put yourself in a position and moving from the NFL to the traditional business world. You wanted to put yourself in a position where you could control your outcome and how much that resonates with what you just talked about, that by creating those relationships, you create control over all the other noise that takes place outside of that relationship you have with that person. So it's just kind of an interesting circle that you've come to there, and that desire to control where you're headed from the business standpoint is the overlay on how you've approached these kinds of partnerships.
No doubt, without a doubt. It's always, it always goes back to control what you can control.
Yeah.
And I can't control wins and losses, but what I can impact is when those doors open, that 2.5 hour experience that somebody has within that building of ours, and the fact that we try to do everything we can to have them leave anything else they're dealing with outside. And how can we make sure, win or lose, that experience in the building is magical for them, whether it's the first time they've been to a game. I always love to go up to the upper deck and see a father and son or mother, daughter, or whatever coming to their first game.
Yep.
And you see that excitement, that electricity in there. That's what we can control. That's what, as we go down the road and build partnerships and we build these relationships with folks that are investing into us and trust that we're going to do that for them, those are the areas of that magic that we try to create around it, whether we win or lose, to make sure that when they leave, man, they can talk about the great experience they had as part of that.
Right. And that's obviously the Suns are going through a challenging time right now with some of the stuff that's going on regarding the owner. But again, those relationships that you've created and ensuring that the product remains the same on the court is what gets you past through some of these more challenging and choppy waters. Because the Suns have been incredibly successful over the last some odd years. And so I imagine a lot of those partnerships, it's great to come in at the good times, but you go back and rely on all the learning that you've done and what you've seen work in the past to make sure that you're ready for moments like this. Because it's not just the Suns. Every team is going to have something happen at some point in their future where they're going to have to rely on those relationships and not just the success of the team, right?
Yeah, and I think for us, it's one of those ones where, again, you focus on 3 years ago when I got here, one of the big things we focused on was how are we going to approach partnerships? How are we going to approach those relationships and change the way that we're going about our business here from a partnership perspective? And I think that was an important piece of how we looked at building these partnerships, the renovation. We put $250 million into the arena to change that guest experience of what happened there. And in the 3 years, we've gone from 5 7-figure partners to 18 7-figure partners. We've gone from 140 partners to 70 or 80 partners.
Well, I want you to start selling partnerships for Dave Almy is what I want you to start doing.
There you go. No doubt. No doubt. But we have, partners who are invested and believe in the fact of what we've built. But it also, ties back to what James Jones and Monty Williams have built on the floor, and the product and the players that we're able to take to market. Or on the W side of it, for us on the WNBA side of it, of having, Sue Bird is fantastic.
Transcendent.
We feel we have the GOAT in Diana Taurasi. And so, again, on that, the what we've been able to build on the women's side, for us is one where, we've got we do have the most robust partnership program in the WNBA history, and what we've been able to build there, and the belief and the fact of what we're building around, that team has been awesome to be a part of.
It's such a great story to tell.
Yeah. So it's been, it's one of those ones where, again, we have built something pretty phenomenal here, and we've got really good people that are around us, and the team that we have here is pretty amazing. And so I'm excited about what the future holds for our team, and the opportunities we have with the partners that are with us, and the partners that are going to be joining us here in the future as well too. So then
I want to talk about one partnership in particular, because it's a pretty unique one with the naming rights partner for the arena that you have here. It's the Footprint Center, right? And when you think about naming right partners, you go to some of the bigger traditional categories, right? You go, financial services, credit union, so forth like that. Can you talk a little bit about Footprint and what they bring to the table, and some of the opportunities and challenges associated with what's obviously clearly a mission-driven company? So I think probably most people are still becoming familiar with Footprint. Can you tell a little bit about what they do and the nature of how it came together, and what those challenges and opportunities are?
No doubt. Well, I think the part that was important for us is, as we went down the road looking at a naming rights partner, we wanted a brand that fit us, that fit our values, and fit where it was we were looking to go. We didn't want to just throw, a brand name on that people were like, all right, you just quote unquote took the money. Took the money. And we got down the road. We had several partners who were engaged about the opportunity, and we feel like we chose Footprint just like they chose us. And the idea behind it was, this partnership opens up new opportunities for us that we would have never even thought about. And ESG becomes literally part of every discussion that we look at now and where we go. We have one single mission with Footprint right now, which is the elimination of single-use plastic. That is the biggest thing for us and where we go. And so you talk about, challenge and vision, to be able to take a building and convert it into a position where we're moving away from single-use plastic, and what does that look like from utensils and bowls, and oh gosh, supply chain is fantastic right now.
Your concessionaire must have been like, you want to do what?
Oh, no doubt. And so for us, it's been one that, there's one piece of it that is the arena component to it, of where we're going there. Footprint is a solution provider. They're going to find that solution for a company, whether that's looking at a mac and cheese bowl that is made out of plastic and it's being converted into a compostable product, or looking at in the meat section of a grocer like Fry's, our partner on that end of, when you look at what that packaging is, that packaging is a sustainable material that the meat is coming in as well too. So there's many, no pun intended, many layers of what that solution looks like, but it literally has changed our kind of approach to the business. And whether that's talking to companies like Arisis of how are they doing their packaging and sustainability, that becomes part of our discussion, let alone what they're doing on TV or any of those things as well too. So the nice part is the partners that we have engaged with, somebody like Swire, who distributes Coca-Cola brand, they are side by side with us in wanting to achieve that solution of elimination of single-use plastic, and being in the position of at minimum that we're looking at 100% recycled bottles that we're using within the building as well too, and what that progression looks like. So for us, we feel like it's not just a name on the building, it's a mission for us.
You're digging in deep into the actual
well.
operations.
Yeah, so but that's part of the thing when I look at those partners who have kind of gone deep with us, that have really kind of trusted in us of where it goes, is it's not a sponsorship. It is truly a partnership together, that we have a kind of shared vision on how we're approaching that, whether that's FanDuel, and being one of the first venues in the country to have a sports book in the building. How are we kind of creating that opportunity to maximize the experience for the guests and doing so in the right way, or footprint on the building, or Verizon with their name on our performance center and what we're doing technology wise that nobody else in sports right now is touching. Those are things for us there that it's beyond just a package A, package B, package C. It's really creating a solution-based partnership with folks.
Like our good friends at Banner Health, providing the medical care for the doctors. And it's funny, it reminds me. I got a little.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Banner's phenomenal. We are huge fans of Banner.
But I also reminded of. I did a similar conversation like this with Jason Pearl up at the San Francisco Giants, and he was talking. We were talking about they're in obviously this technology hub. And they have all these companies coming to them with opportunities to try new things. And he says, the most interesting ones are the ones who really get the idea of partnership. And he used Clear as an example, right? Because Clear brought that technology that they use at airports and made the Giants one of the first places where you could use your Clear account to get in more frictionlessly into the Giants game. And it really strikes me that the same thing that you just said. These are the companies that understand that the product that you bring to the table is a way to showcase what it is they do. And that's where partnership really kind of gets interesting versus package A, package B, package C.
No doubt. And I mean, you just look at going back to, a handful of years ago when the patch deal was done for our team.
Mm-hmm.
The patch was a vehicle for PayPal.
Right.
Literally, it was like, okay, we're in for the patch, but we want to be able to bring frictionless transactions to the building.
Mm-hmm.
So before COVID, we were down the road on what that looked like already, from that frictionless transaction to the building that now everybody has done post-COVID. We were ahead of the game on that. And the partnership was built on doors we could open for them to where you could now pay your APS bill via Venmo, PayPal, that you can buy your tickets with Ticketmaster via PayPal, Venmo. Those are the partnerships that we created for them. The patch is for them secondary to all the things that we could do together from a business perspective. That was the important piece for them.
Now, you've been involved with the NBA now for 20 plus years. Sound about right?
Yes, about 20 plus years.
You had you had the Trailblazers and you had some time at IMG, and then and then back with the Suns. When you think back to the business of the NBA now compared to what it was then when you first got started, what surprises you the most, good or bad, about that?
I will tell you that the part of what brought me back to the NBA was, number one, working for a single team and being a part of where that team component is, because you have.
I thought you were going to say doing this podcast.
And the podcast. So
Okay.
It opened up the door of opportunity for me to be able to have this forum with you. Number one. Number two, I will tell you that what is the same over that last 20 years is Teambo and what the league does. The league does. I don't know that there's a better league that shares best practices and that rallies around each other to be able to look at the business and approach. I think the league has also done a great job of advancing where technology is, from virtual signage, and the patch on the jersey being one of the first to ever do that, and the advancement of baseline apron and all the things that we've done from there has really advanced the opportunity for it. I think the other piece of it that continues to be not surprising, but more rewarding is the league's relationship with the players. The players do a fantastic job of kind of supporting our mission and what it is we do. And they got a vested interest in it in the way that the CBA is set up. They certainly share in the success of what we do. And that's a great thing. And so for me, it's one that I don't know that I would work in another professional sports industry when it looks at from a team perspective, because of the fact that I think the kind of the shared vision amongst the teams really supports each other, and we can lean on each other. And that part of it, I'm thankful for.
Well, anytime you can talk about the relationship between the league and its players as being harmonious, I mean, yeah. I think it's fairly speaks for itself that that's a fairly unique thing.
It is, and I'll, again, like the previous head of the Players Association plays for us, and Chris Paul, and Chris and Adam have done a great job there. Now it transitions to CJ's kind of the new head of the Players Association, and I think CJ McCollum is going to do a great job of being able to carry that through. And I think I was fortunate to be part of David's regime when he led the league, and I think of what his vision and passion was about creating a forum for the players. Adam Silver's done a great job carrying that through as well too, and I think from that perspective, that's one I love being a part of. And again, I think it's exciting for where our league is going, and we've just touched the surface, that's the part I think that's also crazy is 20 years of being into it, we're literally just continuing to touch the surface of where it is that we can continue to go, and
where
and
fandom can go
for me, to watch it hopefully 20 years from down the road when I'm not involved in it, of where it's continued to push the envelope, to be engaging, to be, I think it's one of the stronger community-driven leagues that's done a great job in the marketplace to give back, and I think those things are exciting for the league and for our team.
Let's talk about something else that I know you were excited to be part of for a little while. Your son actually followed you into the long snapping business and ended up playing for a little team in the southeastern United States called the University of Alabama. Won a couple national championships. I think went to 3 national championships altogether.
He did.
It's a pretty remarkable program. And you got to spend some time around it, and you got to watch, I think, head coach Nick Saban, how he runs that team, and are a bit more familiar with it. Can you talk about you got a little bit behind the ropes on that? Can you talk a little bit about what observations you were able to make about how he runs his team, and some of your son's, anecdotes and information that he fed back to you that maybe inform how you approach things today?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's one that I will tell you, James Jones, who is our general manager, we've talked about it, and he's actually started to engage the Alabama program as well too. It goes back to, in my opinion, one thing that Coach Saban talks about, and that's the process, and that each thing that you do is you put the right behaviors into place that is part of that process that gets you to the goal that you want to be. I think, again, Coach never talked about winning or losing. I think Coach talked about being the best version of yourself. And what's funny around that is that you bring it up today, because I literally posted on Instagram today. I saw a sign in the coffee shop that was there this morning, and the sign said, "Be the best version of yourself." I took a picture of it and I posted it today. And I had a conversation with one of our young people today that brought that comment up, not even my Instagram post, brought up being the best version of yourself today. And we're talking about it again this afternoon. And it's one of those ones that's Coach's mantra, at least, again, third party that I hear back is how do you approach every day to be the best version of yourself? And if all 11 players who are on the field at the same time are being the best version of themselves and maximizing what they can do individually, and then doing so as a team, the results are gonna be what they are, and you're probably gonna win a lot of games around that. And I think that's why you watch, again, on a game of, like, even last weekend when Bama escaped the game against Texas, which was a phenomenal game. That this week, I'm sure practice was about not the fact that they won. Practice was about the errors that were made, the mistakes that were made around that, and ensuring the fact that you are, again, putting that work in to make sure that you are playing as much of a perfect game that you can, that is within yourself. Don't be beyond what it is that you can bring to the table, but bring to the table the best piece of what you can do. And I think that speaks to those young men for life after Alabama.
Oh, amen.
And I think that's the piece for me that I look at my home. The young man who stepped on that campus at 17 years old, in Thomas, what he evolved in over those 4.5 years at Alabama, the young man that he became, and being part of Coach Saban's leadership team for his last 2 years. And you just look at kind of how he's approached life, and he speaks a lot of it back to Coach Saban and the practices that Coach Saban put in place around that. For us, my wife and I will be forever thankful for what Coach Saban did for Thomas.
Yeah.
And I think for that, it'll be take football outside. It'll create great opportunities for him and whatever he chooses to do, which I think candidly ends up being coaching. And he wants to do for young people what Coach Saban did for him.
Tom Fletcher of the Phoenix Suns. It's such a great life lessons, life story that applies to so many people. And before I let you go, we're going to make sure we enter into the lightning round.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Ugh.
These are questions that you have no idea what's about to come. Quite frankly. So I just want to make sure you're ready.
Let me get a sip of water.
Get a sip of water. Just, relax yourself. Deep breaths.
I'm ready.
Tom Fletcher, lightning round. Who's the better long snapper, you or Thomas?
Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lightning round. There's no explanation.
Thomas.
A Alabama game is on at the same time as the San Diego State game. What are you watching?
Oh, gosh. Probably San Diego State.
Okay. Other than a football, what's the strangest thing you've ever long snapped?
A watermelon.
Oh, that could not have been easy. You are a San Diego State alumnus.
Yes, sir.
Did you spend more time at the beach or the classroom while you were there?
Beach.
Okay. Again, not a lot of hesitation on that one.
Yeah.
What was more intense, waiting for your son Thomas to be born or waiting for his name to be called during the NFL draft?
Oh, gosh. I think that waiting for him to be born, because I knew my life was going to change at that point.
Okay.
I knew that waiting for his name to be called in the NFL draft, that was going to happen.
It's a big deal, man.
Magical. Yeah.
Magical. Tom Fletcher, Phoenix Suns, thanks so much for joining me.
I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this ADC Partners podcast. For more information about ADC Partners, please visit our website at adcpartners.com.